Good morning, everyone. It is Wednesday, and my name is Market Stalker D. I'm your host for the Eurotrade. A little bit about me: I have been trading for 18 years, specializing in some of the more alternative products that you may not see represented elsewhere. Out of the 18 years, I've spent about 12 years of that working for various prop firms, and I became the first female funded trader at Topstep 10 years ago. 10 years ago. I'm still working on my orders and just testing them to make sure that everything is working correctly. It's going well, but today I thought that maybe we could do the stats chat with myself, and maybe if you want your stats reviewed, we could do that. So let me know how that sounds, and let's see who's in the chat. We have Monkey Gamer, who said that you were bored, and yeah, so hopefully I can keep you entertained. All right, we have Amanda, Honey, Tatiana, AVS Phoenix Trading, Austin, NQ dropping fast, NVIDIA News. I'm not an NQ trader, and usually back in the day I used to spend this time trading DAX, which I still do, but obviously we don't have DAX on Topstep, so therefore this show and its name is going to get a bit of an overhaul probably next week. I'm not going to say like definitely, but yeah, we're on track to hopefully bring the bring this show a little bit later, closer to the LME Open, when everything starts moving. And okay, so what I'm going to have to do here is to reinitialize my app. So that means it's going to kick me out for a second. Just give me a minute to do that. It's going to kick me out. Yep, there it is. Okay. Obviously, all the testing and stuff is being done on a combine, so I don't want to use anything that I haven't tested properly. All right, that all looks fine. So the way I write my bots is they're not going to be doing like millions of trades per day. In fact, they usually just execute once or twice. But I do currently have about 5 of them, so most of them are not really designed to trade at this time. But when there is a trend, there is a possibility that copper might enter one. So yeah. And as for the equities dropping, that's great, you know, but again, I'm not really looking to trade NQ or ES. And I'm just not really interested. So yeah. Bro with standards. Okay. It's a funny username. My account dropped from 2,300 to 700 yesterday. Okay, let's explore why that is. Now, before we continue, I just want to remind you, while I am Series 3 qualified, I am not a CTA, so all of this is for educational purposes only. Familiarize yourself with the risk disclaimer that Bruno posts for us every single day as soon as he's awake and working, obviously. I suppose you're in Asia now, so you will be awake, right? So yeah, just to give you a bit of an overview of what the bot is doing right now is just listening. So it is in listening state, still establishing those overnight ranges. So this is the console output, and I have HGGC. And RBOB also being being tracked. And so far, we do have some calculations for the RB because, so RBOB, I have a couple of things that it looks for. It looks for the, one of them is a mean reversion bot. The other one is kind of also a mean reversion, but it looks at different things. So obviously for that, I have to find the value areas. I absolutely suck at making dashboards. I tried making it and then something is not really working. So I'm really not that great in making graphic user interfaces. So, so yeah, and I don't really care much about that, but I do care that the values are being calculated correctly. So yesterday I worked on the code to correctly give me and spew out the value areas for RBOB, and that took a little bit of arm wrestling, but we got there in the end, and now we have correct values, which is what the log shows me. Amanda is asking, I'm curious if copper is short. It reached the 14-day 1 ATR from high. So here's the thing. Copper, in the way I'm looking at it, has actually exceeded and so far ignored the ATR and ADR as well. When that happens, there's a higher chance of the market turning into a single direction day. That's also the reason why I do have a trending bot. It does have some conditions that are currently actually not particularly showing up. Why? Because I do need some sort of a pullback whilst maintaining the slope of the EMA. And also the Fisher transform needs to be a little bit less than -2, because that's a little bit much. And I don't want the bots to chase breakouts, because again, if you do any sort of a back test, or even if you trade manually and try to do breakouts and stuff, they just don't work very consistently. So I always try to get in on pullbacks whenever we have any sort of a potential for a trend. And if I look at the 30-minute chart, it is literally just starting its descent, and I don't expect this to change much, at least not before we get to my 3 p.m. in England. Why? Because usually at the COMEX start, we get a bit of a counter trend move, which offers an opportunity to get back in on the trend. Now, depending on the day's context, that time of day can also be very good for any kind of mean reversion trades, like a false breakout, if that sort of a context exists. But yeah, usually I use that time of the day to figure out if I should be waiting for a pullback and not acting on a pullback and going into a single direction trending day, or if I should do the fake breakout and get involved on a reversal. So it is very contextual, but the trending bot should be doing. Now the thing is, the trending bot, I haven't actually finished it correctly until we get this day. So usually it's a fake out of some sort, and that is a much more frequently occurring state in copper. But today we have a trend, so I'm kind of hoping that at some point in the day it is going to kick off an order. But yeah, I haven't this bot I haven't tested with like actual orders executing on a logic signal. I've tested the gold bot, tested the RBOB one, but yeah, this one still needs, I need to see what it's going to do when the signal is actually there. So yeah, it's all just now waiting, seeing what happens, fishing for bugs, squashing bugs, and then carrying on. To some people that sounds very boring. To me it sounds great, because I love doing that stuff. So Malik is asking me to do a swing trade as well. So very rarely, and if I'm going to do a swing, I will do it through an options position. I do not swing trade outright positions, because I feel that the the way the markets are behaving these days, you would need like humongous stop losses to execute a swing position properly. Whereas if you're doing it with a long option of some sort, obviously the timing has to be correct, because the longer that you keep the long option, the more the time decay gets to it. So really you need to fish for the day when that volatility is going to appear for the swing position within the first couple of days of the option. And to me, I like to run options with an expiry of about 45 days. So it's nothing immediate, certainly not 0 DTEs or anything like that. And then if I do get that move within the first couple of days, I will just close it. I never hold options to expiry, because I'm not looking to enter certain options trades in order to obtain a particular price on, like, let's say something like Nvidia or something. So I feel that the options, especially in products that are pretty highly priced, I think that the options are a better choice, because every option offers the same risk profile. Whereas if you're running it as an investment at those areas, unless you're, I don't even know what you could do with options that are with the outright trades that are so expensive. So if I'm going to do an investment that I want to keep as an actual investment, I will look for something that is cheaper, and then I have a view to kind of keep it for 10 to 20 years. So yeah, it kind of just becomes a part of my portfolio. But anything that is, really anything over $100 for me, it's like it's too expensive. And if I see something, it's going to be an options trade. So yeah. And then if we are in a range, like sometimes in crude oil, I dislike doing crude oil longs. But if they are reaching a weekly range low that we've had for like several months, then I may do a short option of some sort to collect a little bit of income, because there's not that much movement, right? But yeah, swing trading, sort of, yes, but not with outright futures. So yeah. Andrea is asking me, I'm not here every day, if you already mentioned this. My question is, what is your percentage return per month? My percentage return per month is nothing astronomical. I am somebody who likes to do smaller trades or smaller positions and then go for more ticks captured in a day or in a month. And it really depends on the size of the account. Obviously, the bigger the account, the smaller the return will be. So if I have an account that is 600,000, that's really just between 2 and 4% per month. So, very, very conservative. On prop accounts, I suppose you could say that I can generate 20 to 30% because of the aggressive positioning, but that then also carries more risk and more chances of blowing up. Now, I do have a live account with Topstep, and I'm extremely conservative with it still. So, it is a one account. I don't really fancy going down to, the combine or XFA stage. And I'm just taking it super slow. I have years to make that into something viable, so that there's no rush. But that account did start with 20 grand, so it's kind of slowly just generating profits. But we just went through the summer as well, so I went down to 1 micro, and I kept it fairly stable, surprisingly. So yeah, now we're going to see what we're going to do. But yeah, it really depends on the account balance. It depends on the aggressive or less aggressive positioning. But when I say aggressive, I really do not mean that I'm risking like 25% of the account at any time. I just mean that I am like literally just using maybe 2 to 4% per position. And I trade anywhere from 1 to 5 trades per day. But on most days, it will actually just be 1 trade. So take that as you will. So yeah, I'm not somebody that you will see, unless I run the account up to some crazy figures, it's very unlikely that you will see me, you know, at any sort of, oh, Z made 20 grand on the account that only had 20 grand inside it. I have no desire to do that. That is not how you survive in this industry. And I mean, it's impressive for people who are maybe coming into the industry as a new person and they're like, wow, this person made 40 grand in 2 months or 100 grand in a month. Great. We see them, and then 2 months later, we don't see them. So, you know, there's something to be said about that. And look, there are people who are at the time of the life where they're maybe still young, you know, still very aggressive with their positioning. Maybe they're building their wealth. But, you know, after 18 years, I am pretty happy with 200 to 300 per day. If I make a grand or two, awesome. But that will be some sort of an intraday swing on a prop account. I don't over-dramatize it, and I don't glamorize it either. It is what it is. It's just the type of day that came along. So it's been a long time since I was getting excited or sad about trading. So it's completely disconnected. Andrea says, so working with more capital in order to use lower risk per position, but still enough to make a living out of the profits. Yeah, but having said that, I'm a huge proponent of having multiple streams of income. I know that for me, when I went to just one stream of income, it destroyed my psychology. I'm going to be very, very straightforward about that. And I was doing really well. However, the stress of having to generate income month after month after month, it just got to me, you know, and suddenly every time, you know, my husband would buy something, I would be like, oh, that's quite expensive. And I don't want that. You know, I want, at this point in my life, I do want some security. You know, I want something that's kind of rolling in every month. And I know that I don't have to do too much to generate that. So I am not against people trying to generate, you know, different sources of income. In fact, I support it. I know that as late there has been a lot of animosity towards people who are like, oh yeah, you know, this person has got a course and they're doing affiliate codes. Yeah, they're entrepreneurs. Like, presumably you went into trading because you wanted that lack of that ceiling and a 9 to 5. Whatever can provide that for you. You know, we all have families to take care of. We all have bills to pay for. And, you know, we all want nice things. So why not use trading as a windfall? And, you know, I use trading income from prop to buy trinkets, right? So this entire computer, this camera, these lights, Bob over there in the background, all of that was purchased from literally like the May prop payouts from Topstep. So that was, you know, take it as you will, right? But, you know, that's what I use it for. And then obviously I have other incomes. I have other businesses. You know, I'm pretty straightforward about that. I have a software development company. Obviously we're doing this. So this is kind of a contracting role as well. You know, anything that can make your life easier and remove the stress to your psychology. I think that's an oversight by many people who are like, I just want to trade for a living. Yeah, you can. Just don't put all your eggs in one basket, right? That's first rule of investing and trading, really. Don't put all your eggs in one basket, because when that basket gets smashed up or you malfunction as a trader, then all of this guilt, psychological trauma is created. Why not just make trading something that is a fun way to make windfalls, you know? That's the way I look at it. So yeah, again, we all have our own opinions, but that is mine. I will never bash somebody because they're like, oh yeah, look, they're working with all the prop firms and they have affiliate codes. Good on them. Good on them. Entrepreneurial spirit, right? Don't have any issues with that. As long as it's not, you know, super sleazy and whatever they're selling is genuinely providing value, you know. Bro Standard says, what was lonelier, losing trades or not having anyone to understand who you were, what you were fighting for? So I was very lucky that the people in my environment were already in the banking industry, especially my husband. And then I worked for prop firms as well in office. So back in the day, we did not have, when I started, it was all in office. There was no online prop firms. I mean, that only became a thing as kind of Topstep, which was the first, became a little bit more popular. So I only really found them in 2015. But even after that, I still went to work for in an office prop firm. So yeah, I don't think that I was as lonely. I think I only got to the lonely part during COVID when, we were sitting at home doing nothing. And then I was like, I need some people. Where do I find them? And that's actually how I got involved with YouTube. Even though I've been on YouTube, technically I uploaded my first video on YouTube in 2015, but it wasn't really until 2020 that I started taking it a bit more seriously. So yeah, I don't think it was that lonely, because I always said the risk managers to cry on their shoulder, to talk things through about, going through stuff. And always got constructive criticism as a result. This is one of the valuable points of the VIP program, and hopefully the stats that you guys might want me to review. Now, being lonely over losing, I didn't really have that. Not because I didn't have any losing months. Of course I did. But like I said in the beginning, I don't over dramatize it, nor do I connect it with my sense of self-worth. And I've never done that. I don't know why. Maybe I'm just built a different way. But I didn't see, winning or losing as this big ogre that's going to make me lonely or that's going to make me super happy. Like, money is money. It's a means to an end. It is the society that we live in. And, if you don't have money, it becomes a little bit more challenging, right? But once you get money, if you had issues in your life, you will still have them. Maybe no issues about the bills, but you will but here's another problem. As your income grows, so do your bills. I do not know any person who, won't splash out on something every so often, even if they live well beyond their means. They still want comforts, they still want, a nice TV, maybe a nice car, and it's okay to want those things. It is absolutely okay. But the problem is that people see wealth generation as an extreme exercise, that you are either broke or you're like a multi-millionaire, like with enormous amounts of cash in your bank. It's usually not like that, right? Even people who have a lot of income, like 100 million, 200 million, a lot of that will be tied into some assets, and then they have cash flow. And sometimes I've actually met people with high net worth that are still struggling with cash flow. Like they have barely $1,000 in their bank account. And I'm like, it's like, what, really? And they're like, yeah, because it's all in a trust, or it's all there. So, I guess it's a different way of looking at the wealth. And to be honest, when I first realized that can happen, I was a bit shocked. I was like, what do you mean you don't just have 40, 50, 100 grand laying in your account? And they were like, well, I want that money to work for me. I don't want, so I have effectively, they effectively had a budget that they were working under for their cash flow bills and stuff. But then everything else was being invested into pensions, or they had a trust. I think they had a ton of portfolio, like multi-million-dollar portfolio, right? But on a day-to-day basis, they're like, oh yeah, cash flow a bit tight, this, and that's to be respected. It just shows you that people who are generating wealth, they are maybe not looking at the money in the same way that most of us are. It's like, oh, I've got 20 grand in the bank. Let me go and buy, I don't know, a car. It's like the stupidest thing you can buy, right? Loses value. Unless you buy, one of the, supercars or something, then that's a different thing. But for those supercars, you're going to need anywhere from $250,000 to $500,000. So if you have that, yeah, go ahead, buy a Lambo, whatever. I'm not into that at all. I think that cars for me are just a means to an end to, go walk my dogs and occasionally go to the groceries and not to rub it into other people's faces. But that's me. I come from a bit of a different background because my dad was actually pretty wealthy when I was little, and I just saw no value in that. So yeah. All right. So NM14 says, this is repeating every time I reach 90% of the funded account and blow up. Tried splashing cold water and other tricks, but the blowing account cycle repeats. Does this mean I stop trading? No, it means you're stuck in your nervous system cycle loop, that you're not interrupting at the right points. A while ago we were running Neuro Wednesdays, but basically whenever you're repeating things, it means that your nervous system has gotten used to kicking off the fight or flight response at the point when you get to 90% to passing an account. And then instead of you being aware of it and interrupting that loop that your whole body is stuck in, you just let it sweep you away, okay? Splashing cold water ain't gonna cut it. You need to remove yourself from the trading desk and get a pair of really heavy weights and keep going with the weight resistance until you drain the glycogen reserves from your muscles so that you are in a surrender state, rather than, oh my God, now I need to fight to get the last 10. It's like, no, just relax, but recognize that you are in basically a primitive state. Because what happens when your survival instinct overrides your prefrontal cortex is that you don't trade at that point. It is not you trading. It is the animal side of you trading. So at that point, the animal knows nothing about levels. It knows nothing about risk. It knows nothing. All it's trying to do is mistakenly trying to keep you alive, because it can't tell, your primitive mind and your primitive brain side of us cannot tell the difference between an actual death threat and some money lost. So it looks at it as the same thing. It looks at it as a threat to your existence. Now, is it maybe a threat to your self-identity? Possibly. But the primitive brain doesn't know that. So it just kicks off a whole bunch of nonsense behaviors that have actually worked well to protect you beforehand. In your life, or anything that you've done up until now, that fight or flight response has saved you many times from doing something stupid. But the problem is, trading is a risky thing, and you will never feel safe. You will always feel a little uncomfortable. So I say get comfortable feeling uncomfortable, yeah? And if you are looking to interrupt that loop and to actually change something, you need to do a lot of work on your self-awareness. You need to re-engage your prefrontal cortex, which is not going to happen with a cold water splash on your face. It will only happen when your body no longer has the fuel to kick off fight or flight. So understand the biological processes involved in it, and how does it happen? You get your heart rate increasing. If it gets to 170 beats per minute at any point, even once, fight or flight response is engaged. The only way to get out of it is to actually drain the fuel that the body uses to kick off the fight or flight. So once your heart rate hits 170, your body pumps extra adrenaline and then drains the glycogen from wherever you can find it and pumps it into your muscles to prepare for the fight. Unfortunately, we're not fighting anyone physically. So unless you shuffle all of that biological, all of the biological processes that are kicking off into a physical form of exercise, you're going to basically fight with your P&L, and then you're going to end up blowing up accounts. So that is a thing that needs to be interrupted. It is a learned behavior that stems from the fight or flight response, and it ain't changing until you become aware of it and actively, deliberately work on putting a stop to that nervous system loop. So it's difficult, but it requires a lot of self-awareness. It requires a lot of a lot of reflection and introspection, and then also some exercise. So if you're able, you're going to have to start doing some weightlifting whilst the loop is happening. So doing the weightlifting beforehand, that's one thing, but you need to disrupt the emotions as they're happening. That is the only way to disrupt that loop and stop yourself from doing stupid things. And as you start to lift weights, your prefrontal cortex comes back. It is quite a funny feeling because you're like, oh, there you are, or there I am, because that, the prefrontal cortex is where we think of ourselves as ourselves. That is your identity. That is how you think about yourself. And then all this other stuff that is a part of your primitive side of the brain is I call it the D-animal. I call it the animal side of me, right? And when the animal takes over, yeah, I can do stupid things as well. But at this point, I've learned to recognize that. And for the most part, it doesn't really happen. Like, it might happen once every 3 months. But as soon as it happens, I'm like, there she is. There she is. And then I immediately just step away. Now, I'm physically not able to exercise, unfortunately, due to the health conditions that I suffer from. But yeah, I use Yoga Nidra. I literally just remove myself and go and do other things for 2-3 hours. And sometimes I will actually end my day if I notice any sort of tilty behaviors. And then I will do everything in my power to stay away from the trading desk on that day. And once I sleep, that passes and it's a new day. But yeah, like I said in the beginning, I don't have this whole over-dramatizing losses. And yeah, I've just got to a point where it's just not really a focus of anything, really. It's either a good day or a bad day or a medium day or a partial day. And I really don't care. So it is what it is. If it's a control loss, there was nothing to be sad about because it's a control loss. The market just didn't do what needed to be done that day. And the setup failed. It didn't work. It's very simple. So, yeah. Morgiver says, I got a question. If I'm loading data from Rhythmic Trader API, do I have the same data as Project X? I would argue that Rhythmic data comes from Rhythmic, whereas Topstep's data comes from CME directly. So if anything, I would say that Topstep probably has higher quality data. So I don't know, like what are you trying to do? Trying to do a back test? If you're trying to do a back test, you can't do historical retrieval of anything unless you're going to do actual calculations based on the current day and, like the immediate historical view. For any back testing, you're going to need to pay for some high quality tick data that can go back through the different contracts. And if anyone knows any services, you're very welcome to do that. But, to suggest it in chat. But if you're working on back tests, I would say Quant Connect is probably, the best back testing tool that I've seen. And then it also, the reason why it's so good is because it can, like the way Quant Connect was designed is so that the coders can actually monetize whatever they're doing, and it goes, you can actually plug your bots straight into Interactive Brokers accounts too. So obviously they have to have high quality data, and then all of those bots are actually up for grabs from the institution. So somebody wants to, if somebody wants to rent your bot for a while, that is where Quant Connect excels, but it's very difficult. So yeah, but when it comes to quality of the data, they obviously have to have pretty high quality because that's all they do. So I don't really trust any backtests that you can find randomly on Rhythmic or elsewhere. So it has to be high quality data that can use the current contracts, not just like a continuous contract and then like smushes all of it together. Yeah, you need to start with high quality data for backtests first and foremost. So yeah. But, if you are doing the actual bot, so you're actually creating it, that already needs to be based on the backtests that you've already done. The way I write my bots, it's not all based on just like, oh yeah, the backtest was amazing, let's go. It's based on my models that I've traded for 12 years. day to day, because before then I was a swing trader. And any backtest that I do, it's just to slightly optimize it, to maybe go, now why don't you use, instead of, let's say, false breakouts and a reversal based on the overnight range, is it better that we use 50% or 75%? So let's just iterate through those. And then I just run it as an out of sample. Like right now I'm in the out of sample stage, right? So I want to see how the bots are going to be doing things in real time over the next at least a month, maybe longer, but the bare minimum for an out of sample test is 2 weeks. So to see what data you're actually getting, and is it anything close to the backtest? And if not, it means that the backtest is completely wrong. So yeah. Are we buffering? Okay. I don't know why my data is like choking. But Bruno says we're still live. Still live? I'm just gonna check that. Right, okay. So Bruno says he had to refresh. I don't know why. But there was a bit of a boo-boo in the buffering of the video. Yeah. NM14 says, thanks Dee, that certainly enlightens me with some subconscious activities. How to learn this behavior change? A coach can help, or should I access a psychologist? So you would need someone who deals with the actual psychological problems, but somebody who is very familiar with the trader psychology and issues that we suffer from, because it is different. For example, I went to see a psychiatrist for a completely unrelated thing, and she's like, oh, so what do you do? So I thought, oh, maybe I can talk to her about any kind of hang-ups that I might be having. And he goes, he goes, oh, so you must be a really driven person and you don't have really a lot of time for anything private. And I was like, no, actually, I value my private time a lot. Like, you're just kind of stereotypically smacking a label of entrepreneur who has nothing else to do but work. It's like, yeah, I do love my work, but I also like to watch TV and have downtime and train my dogs and spend time with my husband. Like, what? Like, what? They totally don't get it. So in the end, I just stuck to the issues that I was there for, which is related to the chronic health condition. They couldn't help because it wasn't psychological, but never mind, that's a different story. So you need to go to somebody who can actually give you some concrete examples, like somebody like Jared Tendler. We have Dr. V as well, people that have been on TopstepTV that we've introduced you to that deal with the psychological side. I like Jared Tendler because he is pretty straightforward. He's not really, I wouldn't call him like a psychiatrist, but he's definitely a psychologist. And he deals with high performers. So what do we need? We need somebody who understands the high performance problems, right? So you need to be at the top of your game all the time. How do you get there? Well, you're not going to get there by swooping things under the carpet when things go wrong. You're going to get there by labeling them and by tracking them. So I like how Jared does the mental game and tactical game, right? So mental game, are you on your A game, B game, C game? And also the specific mental triggers that lead you to slip from your A game to B game to C game, as well as what caused it. Is the market's maybe market not moving? Maybe it's moving too quickly, so you got stopped out 3 times and that triggered you. That's a trigger that needs to go into your C game, right? And then you track it throughout the day. And it's kind of annoying at first. However, for me, it was an amazing exercise to do that. I did something similar back in the day with one of the psychologists that we actually had as a part of a prop firm. But they were a little bit more kind of hippie and stuff. However, they still had this idea. It's like, well, are your mental triggers present? And for me, my big mental trigger is when the markets are super slow and I'm trying to do a trade that I wanted to get 50 ticks out of, but over the 2 hours, nothing's happening. And then I start to kind of go short, go long, go short, go long, go short. So nowadays I stop after 2, right? Because I recognize that I'm flipping and flopping around the same area and it's not moving. so that I'm able to stop myself and not go into the B and C game, but rather than go, well, I tried it twice and now it's time to just walk away and wait for a better situation, the end. And not like, oh, now I'm angry, now I'm kicking up fight or flight, now I'm just going to do it. So yeah, have a look at Jared Tendler. He does have a basic course, but I think he offers like a community there, but you can actually work with him one-on-one, which is obviously always quite expensive. Any kind of one-to-one services are going to be ballpark like $5,000 and upwards, right? So if you feel that that's worth it, go for it. But if not, just start on the book and the basic things that they all have. So usually there's a book, which is the cheapest way to access the context and concepts that they are talking about. And then if you find them helpful, maybe you can go onto a course and then eventually to one-to-one once you start seeing some improvements. But yeah, I like Jared a lot. I think he understands the trader pretty well because he comes from the sports analogies and all of the troubles that golfers have to go through when they're trying to work on a high level. So yeah. Austin is asking, do you have any idea if Topstep plans to introduce market replay to TopstepX? Honestly, I don't, because I'm not a part. Like, whilst I can throw them bugs every so often that I see in the platform, I'm not really involved with development directly at all. So, I'm just like a user at this point, even though I was the first live account at Topstep. And back in those days, yes, it was up to me to test like new features and stuff. So I gave them a lot of input. But then, now most of the things are working. Yeah, sometimes it gets stuck, but, they always make it right. And whether new features are coming and when, your guess is as good as mine. So I don't know. And to me, I don't need that because I mentioned I have a software development company. As a part of that, we do make trading indicators that are mainly order flow based, but also something like ADR. And I have this little nifty feature that allows me to go back in time and to see how the market actually behaved on the day. Whether it was Asia, whether it was London, and it does it with no lag because I have an awesome development team and they are absolute rock stars with bulge bracket bank experience, and when they make something, it's going to be good quality. So very proud of what we do over there. And yeah, so yeah, I don't need it because I have it directly on my my charting platform. So yeah. I gave up going to the gym for a year to spend the time to learn trading. Yeah, the worst thing you can do. You need a cool head. You need a cool head. And now you're saying, now thinking of going back, so wondering how that might affect me. Positively. It's going to affect you positively. Now, I don't know whether if you've only been at it for 1 year, and I would guess that the strategy is still not 100% foolproof, because for any strategy you need to have time as chaotic factor in the trading results. Without that, you don't know whether your strategy is robust enough. So I would say if you've only been trading for a year, that is still very, very early days, and dealing with any psychological issues may be the wrong thing to do, because you need a good strategy first. Okay, we can't jump fences and go, well, I'm going to work on my psychology first. If you have a flawed strategy, you're supposed to be working on that strategy and improving it, and seeing whether you can reduce the number of trades you take per day, which is becoming something that I now realize that is a big problem in the industry. It never used to be when I started, because it was all structured in a very different way. You couldn't full port anything because you would be fired. You couldn't trade through news, because we had the rule not to trade through news. So you could get involved once everything is done. And some companies even had no trading news at all at any time, 15 minutes before, and until like 2 hours later. Now you have trading news. Now we have this rush culture that is like, oh, get funded quicker, don't learn, find a loophole, quickly, let's get to payouts, let's get to this. And in doing so, we have now created an entire generation of traders who are rushing. Bigger size, faster to this, faster to that. And all that it brings is, should I say it? I'm going to say it. Extra revenue for the prop firms, which is not a bad thing, right? So it's like, it's not the firm's fault for people malfunctioning and deciding to go down this route. But it is definitely worrying in the way that, you have people who don't even realize that this is a problem. They think that's how things are done. If you just slow down for a second and go, I'm going to spend a month on this combine. Let me see how long I can last in it without blowing up. Isn't that a better goal than, I need to get funded in 2 days or 1 day, or not go through an eval at all and just go straight to the payouts and then spend more money making all the mistakes that I was going to make in a combine because I'm not ready? I don't know, man. Like, if you set your sights to get funded in a month and then you just take it day by day, what does that do for your mindset? Does it help? Does it make you go, no, okay, so I've got a month. It's okay. I don't need to pass in a day or two. Whereas every time people buy like super cheap thing, like, it's okay that it's cheap, right? I don't have a problem with that. Entry into the industry is very low now. But I think it seduces people with like cheap evals, 2 days to pass, and they're like, I'm going to get there in 2 days. Just because you can doesn't mean you should, okay? Yeah. NM14 said, Jared said that if there are gambling tendencies, he cannot really help. That would be it. Yeah, I actually say no to people who come to me for one-to-one coaching. And as we're talking, and because I asked for stats review in a lot of the cases, and I asked them, how many trades do you do in a day? How often does the overtrading happen? Usually most people are just pretty normal. They're like, well, sometimes I might do 15, 20 trades in a day when I'm on tilt. And I'm like, that's nothing. But if somebody goes, oh, I've been through, 100 combines in a year, or in a 6 months period, I've spent, 40,000 on them. To me, that indicates that there is some sort of a compulsive behavior going on where you can't let go and you're not willing to change. So then you go to a coach thinking that somehow we're like miracle workers. It's like, I'm not a psychiatrist. I don't deal with addictive personalities and addiction issues. Right? I deal with strategy. I deal with putting you on the right path. But if you're just a gambler through and through, I have to say no to you. And, because that's not my field. Like, I can tell you some basics of neuroscience, but I'm not going to be there to hold your hand as you learn how not to do 300 trades per day in a one-to-one situation. I'm not an expert in that. I can only tell you what worked for me. And the deeper that it goes, it's like, well, you realize that you really can't help them because, maybe they need some medication or rehab. They don't need a trading coach. They need an actual medical professional. So, yeah. Didn't have too many of those. I think I had a couple. And one of them was quite obviously a gambler, quite obviously. The other one, I went through 6 months with him, and I realized on probably month 2 that he cannot stop himself. And then we had moments where, they're supposed to be doing 3 trades per day, and they're supposed to stop after that. And he went on and did 50, and then after the 15th, I said, okay, can we, I think it's time to end it for the day. No, but I'm just, and it was jumping from one product to the next, to the next, to the next, and then jumping to, failed auction, stained auction. Oh, it was a breakout, so I'm going to still go in, even though it's miles away from all the levels that we've seen. Oh, that didn't work. Okay, let me have a look at Dow. Never traded Dow before, but I'm going to have a look at it. Oh my God, yes, I'm seeing the failed auction there as well. It was this like barrage of posts where you could see just loss of control, and I was like, I can't help you, mate. Like, this is way outside of my pay grade here. And in the end, they actually wanted to renew the membership, and I just said, I'm sorry, I don't think I'm the right person for you, because there are some very deep issues there that I cannot help, unfortunately. YOLO is a big problem. Yeah, I see in Discord chat how people open 5 full size. So I think a part of the problem is that whenever I'm looking at any chat, and even in the beginning of the VIP seasons that we're doing here, people are like, well, if we're supposed to be using 1% of 50,000, that's 500. And I'm like, 50,000 is not your maximum drawdown, though, is it? No, well, 2 grand is. Yeah. So what account size are you trading? And they're like, oh, and I'm like, yes. And I cannot believe that people don't, like, some, I don't know, maybe I suffer from expert blindness or something, but sometimes I'm just thinking, are you just not reading, or are you just completely deciding to disregard what you've just read? And also somebody in this season of VIP, they went, oh, well, we only have a month to pass. And I'm like, no. Why are you under the impression that you have a month to pass? Like, what? And they go, yeah, because the balance is going to reset every month. And I'm like, no, it won't. Like, you get a rebuild, but if you didn't break any rules and you didn't touch the end of day drawdown or MLL, right, nothing's going to happen. You're just going to get a rebuild. But in the VIP, there's not even a rebuild, right? So it just carries on. What are you on about, mate? And he goes, oh, so we don't. Oh, no, so we don't have to pause in a month. How long has that been like that? And I said, oh, since about 2016. Because in the beginning, in the first, I think, couple of years or so, they did have, I think, pause in 10 days, or that was it, or pause in 30 days, and then that was it. But then I think 2016, they just decided to run it as a subscription because they recognized, the rushing side of things, it wasn't a good thing. And you would retain customers, right? So now everybody runs it on a subscription. But yeah, it's just like, read the rules and manage your account as it should be managed on 2K, 3K, 4.5K. That's all you're getting. It might be a nominal value where you can trade up to 5, but the nominal value is not the same thing, right? In fact, nominal value, if we're going to go by like actual margin requirements, because that's what it's based on. I think the 50K was based on the old style margins. So let's see, if you want to trade 5 NQs and okay, this day trading is if you exclusively do day trading, but there is still like a maintenance thing. So if you want to have no restrictions and you can trade after electronic hours are done, and you need to put up the full initial margin. And by the way, this does not exempt you from the full initial margin. So this is just to open up a position intraday, but you'd still need to have enough cash to put up the initial margin. Maintenance margin and day trading margin are 2 very different things. I think people also forget about that. So if you want to trade 5 NQ contracts, the nominal value of the account would actually be closer to 180 grand. But like I said, the 50K nominal for five minis back in the day, it was 50K. That was it. You know, it was about 10K per contract. But now, to trade 5 NQs, you actually need to put up $178,570, which is a lot of money. So yeah, just think about that next time you want a full port and go 50K, 5. Okay, good. But those $2,000 are not going to last a second, because the NQ is just going to go and that's going to be gone. So, you know, thank God we have micros, right? Let's have a look at oh, actually, Vito, you're here. You know why I say that. Yeah. So Amanda says, use AI to do value at risk. So we have a little inside joke there with Vito. So Amanda says, use AI to do value at risk for your sizing based on real dollar amounts and contract sizing, and you can do risk per trade calculations for prop. Yes, that's a great use of AI. In fact, that's one thing that AI does really well, really, really well. So yeah. All right, is anyone up for some stats review? Stat chat? Just to break things up on this Wednesday. Because I'm not going to be trading this time of the day, sorry. Yesterday I tried to appease chat, and then I had some trades that weren't a part of my my bots, and then that kind of caused me some distress. I was like, what happened? So yeah, should we do stat chat? Wayne Simpson says, I like your advice, but I've never seen you take, you've never seen me take a trade. Never, ever, in the year and a half that I've been doing these. Never, ever have you seen me take a trade. Have you? Okay. Cool. Cool story, bro. Yeah. And I'm just in a live account. How? Because I don't take any trades, and I had one live account, then I withdrew it, then went into Combine and ended up in another live account for after 40 days. And I do that by not taking any trades. But here's the thing. I don't take trades because chat wants me to, especially not in the live account. I take my trades when the setup is there. You know, the difference. I also take between 1 to 3 trades per day on average. So that means if I don't see a setup, I'm not taking a trade, mate. No matter how much you want me to. But I don't trade based on what you want. I trade based on what my strategy tells me. Maybe something to learn from. But if you think that you've never seen me take a trade, never seen me, chat, have you ever seen me take a trade? All right, so we've got a Discord channel that that Bruno has just posted, and I basically will be taking stats from whoever posts in there and dragging them out to do a little bit of you know, constructive review, whether it's going to be criticism or just a nice review. That depends on what is going on there. But yeah, so let's do a stat chat. Wayne says, I don't watch every day. Well, there's your problem. There's your problem, because I don't necessarily do everyday trades on this time of the day, because most of the time I'm doing them between 12 and 4 p.m. my time, which is in another 90 minutes. And every so often, there's a setup at this time of day. And right now I'm running bots. I'm not even looking to trade myself because I'm running bots, right? So what are the bots doing? Nothing. They're just listening right now. They're listening, observing, just like we should, right? If you think that every trader who, like, how do you think that I got to do this job for 12 years? Do you think it's by full porting and opening up positions at the wrong time of the day and when there's no levels to fall back on? Is that how you think people build careers? If that's the case, then you're way too used to the YouTube streamers who are just clicking buttons as if they're going out of fashion. But, you know, I don't see any of them who have worked in actual prop firms, apart from the online ones. And I see them blowing up accounts all the time. Do you know what used to happen when you blow up an account back in the old days when old school prop was still going? You get booted out of the office and you get fired. So, you know, I'm sorry if I'm not the churn and burn type of person. And maybe this is not the stream for you. So if you find me not taking enough trades for your liking, that's your problem, mate, not mine. So, you know. Moontrader says, can you explain the COMEX value / ADR? So here's the thing. This is from yesterday. That's not supposed to be there. Oh, maybe it is. Hold on. Let me check my thing. No. So that's supposed to be just COMEX val. Yesterday it was at the exact same point as yesterday's ADR low. And today the ADR is actually down at 36.95. So if anything, we need another line. But yeah, sometimes if the two things are lining up, to be basically the same level to within a couple of ticks of each other, I just put them together, right? So 36.95. And because I'm a mean reversion trader, I need some pretty extended areas and extremes of something. Extremes of Asia, extremes of the initial balance, extremes of the gap that we've basically gone too high up, but within the ADR to get a mean reversion down. So, you know, they're very, you have to be very selective as a mean reversion trader because mean reversions don't happen all the time, right? So you have to be careful. And yes, I do have continuation trades, but those usually are still pullbacks to either overnight VWAP or to some kind of an overnight range or to value area if we're somewhere nearby. But usually on a trending day, the value areas are going to be very far away anyway, so that's not very a very good strategy because you're going to be standing there waiting forever and a day for your for your level, and then doing a whole bunch of stupid trades in the run up to the level or run down to the level. So, you know, 37, 36. My trading is not exciting, okay? It's not exciting. It's just waiting for a level. Level gets there. I look for a particular price event, depending on what I'm looking for. And then I just go into a trade and I sit on it, sometimes for 3 hours. Sometimes for 45 minutes, if things are working. And during Trump tariffs, for 10 minutes, because everything was moving like crazy. But a lot of the times I will be in one trade for 4 hours. Is that exciting to watch? No. And a lot of the time, Wayne, maybe you didn't realize that I was already running a trade whilst I'm talking because I found a setup and there's nothing else for me to do. But you're watching me like talk and have one trade. Maybe you didn't notice that there is a trade on there, but because I'm not going, oh, I'm gonna go long, I'm gonna go short, no, I'm gonna, no, you know, relaxing into a trade is the name of the game. Yeah. Can you say more about the bots? I can. What do you want to know? Cedric says GEX levels are still useful doing FOMC news. If they are far away GEX levels, yes. But any GEX levels that you find in and around the release, just forget about those. So just like any other supply and demand, because that's what they are, they're concentrated open interest around particular prices. During releases with high volatility, you have to look outwards. So yes, a GEX level might work, and a gamma wall, if it's far away, might work, but just make sure that it's pretty far out. Still maybe within the day's range, but yeah, it needs to be further out. And then if the price gets there, well, that's going to be the only price that they have in order to hedge against it. Any sort of levels from the GEX and options chain, you really need to look at as accelerators if they're really close by when it comes to the very high risk releases. So yeah, be careful, obviously, because of the FOMC today. And right now we're just unwinding, in a little bit of unwinding across the board in equities, but it's not super fierce. I would say this was just like a bit of a shakeout and stuff. Usually you can get unwinding of positions a day before FOMC. On the day of FOMC, they tend to be more quiet. So, yeah. So GEX levels, still useful. Just make sure that the GEX levels you're looking at are a little bit further out. Wayne Simpson says, is it the wrong time of day for you? Well, since we don't have DAX, which is what the whole point of these shows were supposed to be, and it's not coming. I mean, it's coming, but God knows when. We're actually moving the show to the times that make more sense for gold, copper, platinum, RBOB. So we're basically going to be moving that next week. Fingers crossed. If something changes, obviously we're going to be letting everybody know. But generally, yes, it is the wrong time of day for the products that we currently have on Topstep. Because I don't even consider the overnight low to be established until the LME open, which is in 11:40 a.m. Right now, it is 10:40, so we still have a whole hour. And very frequently, my setups don't even show up until, at least 14 minutes into that. But my prime time to trade is between 12 p.m. and 4 p.m. my time. So, yeah. NM14 says, what do you think, Dee? I have a strategy mindset that works well. They got me past to EVA and get to almost 90% of funded accounts. So isn't it a performance problem? No, I would say it's not a gambling problem. And the performance problem is the fight-flight response. So something obviously happens to you mentally. It's not a gambling problem, but you malfunction just before the payout. That is the psychological, some kind of a protective system that's trying to keep you safe, and it's trying to, make sure that you're not doing any silly things and risky things. But as a result, you end up doing risky things because it's a fight or flight response, and your fight or flight side of the brain knows nothing about trading. So if something happens, instead of sizing down and trading less and ensuring that payout, you do the opposite. You blow up the account in the run-up. So, you tell me, is that rational? No. So it's not a gambling thing. It's just a fight or flight malfunction. So it kicks off at the time of the day when you really don't need it to kick in, and yet it does, and it causes trouble for you. So you need to interrupt that loop. That's not a gambling behavior. That's just a normal body trying to keep you safe behavior. But we don't need that when we're trading. Paul H says, I have a combine just for the ES power hour reversal play. Do you trade it every day? No. Paul, I'm only trading that if we have pretty heavy negative delta at the time, and it's to the long side. So we've gone short, and we are fueling the downside with the shorts from the stopped out longs. So whoever was fishing for longs, they're getting stopped out and fueling the downside. That brings negative delta. Once we get to last half hour of the power hour, right, that take profit move so the people who were short, they start taking profits, and then you get this like huge or fairly sizable reversal. So it's not an everyday setup for me. It can happen to a lesser degree where it's just like a bit of a scalp. So it does happen almost every day, but the size of it is what I'm concerned about. So I will only take those, if I'm still trading at that time and I haven't been able to, generate profits from a couple of trades during the earlier part of the day. Or if I've done extremely well and I'm sitting on like, $2,000 worth of profits for the day, and I want to keep trading. So I will size down to like a third of the position and I will fish for ES reversal, but only and only if it provides the correct setup. So the correct setup is to have that component of negative delta and some sort of a, reason to run a day range fill trade, which is what that is, that has a bigger profit margin inside of it, straight off the bat, purely because of the conditions that we have. So yeah, it's not an everyday thing. But yeah, I mean, it exists and it certainly happens, but how big is the real question? Is the juice worth the squeeze? And the more negative delta you have, the more juice you have for that setup. Brian says, hello, what is the framework for your bots are using? Is it raw Python coding? So it is Python coding. Is it raw? Well, for the first shell of whatever I'm trying to achieve, yes. But then because the way I've done it, I have a library with like constructors and stuff, because I wanted to make it a little bit more modular. So I spent the last sort of 3 weeks creating that. And in the end, I'm effectively running a main app that then initializes different bots. So that's what I mean by more modular, right? So I can chop and change. And yeah, so it is Python, but do I then, once I have the shell and once I have the structure, the infrastructure that I want to use, I will then use Cursor AI to help me make more bots and do more stuff. And you have to be pretty particular with what kind of prompts you're giving it, because it forgets to use the library and then starts trying to create its own methods. And I'm like, what are you doing? So you have to stop it. But yeah, in the very beginning, it is raw Python coding. It is looking at the API documentation, making sure that everything is initializing in the correct order, and how you're supposed to be running all of these streams and user hub and market data. And then also, which order you should be initializing everything so that you can maybe then run, updated positions or, running any kind of user hub stuff. But to me, I needed modular because I have several strategies that I want to run at different parts of the year. And I want to be able to switch the bots on and off as and when required. So yeah. Right, let's have a look at Paul H. Stats. Okay, so this is just power hour. So you've had, a couple of days. So it's just power hour, is it? So that's all you're doing. So why 7 trades on the first day? Is this just adding, exiting? So here I think you started a bit too early on this one. Notice the time. The closer you get to 8:30, which is our time, suddenly your profits start creeping back up. What does that tell you? That 8:20 to 8:30, and sometimes even later, 8:45, is when the day range fill for power hour happens. So 8 p.m. our time, a little bit too early to be starting the power hour play. Right, let's go to this one. This one was just Just one and done, I suppose. Yeah. And that worked. But a bit more scalp, right? A bit more of a scalp. Just fine. Let's have a look at this. Time of day. Okay, so on this one, it obviously didn't work, but you tried a few times. And it was... Let me look at the times. Okay, so you went straight into MOC. I would say don't go straight into MOC because that is very shaky. If you're still planning a trade at that point, wait 1 or 2 minutes and then jump, right? Similarly, if you don't already have an entry around 8:30, 8:20, and at the latest 8:45, it's too close to the MOC. So then your trade would really be looking at 2 minutes after the MOC actually starts happening, and then you just snipe it towards the end of the day. Very short-term trade, right? So that's how I like to approach that. So careful actually executing positions at 50 past 8 to 10 to 9, because that's a little bit painful. Let's see this one. Again, short direction. For power hour short squeeze, those are generally longs. I don't know whether I've seen that many long squeezes. It's always a short squeeze because you have a lot of people who keep trying longs on equities and then getting run over, fueling the negative delta, and then everything just starts going up. But if you have a day that it goes up, 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 and up, we don't short equities. We don't short equities for the power hour day range fill because it's not a high probability trade. In fact, the high probability trade for that on the short side would be to wait for MOC to shake it out slightly to the short side, use that as a pullback and keep going because it's a trend day up. That's a normal thing. It's nothing unusual. But the power hour one where it has a lot of juice in it, it's the unusual outlier day where negative delta keeps growing because a lot of the bottom pickers are trying to get in and getting run over. And ergo, the short squeeze at the end of the day. So yeah. So this one was a long. Again, I think this was probably okay, but did you have the negative delta at the time when you tried longs? So those are some of the questions to ask in regards to the power hour. So yeah, I think you need to be a little bit more selective and not have it every day because it's not an everyday play. It just isn't. So yeah. But great risk management, Paul, as usual, right? You stop at 280, 230. You're not allowing it to do any damage. So yeah, just a little bit more selectivity and be aware of the actual MOC. So don't go straight into it. If you must trade after that because you still think the setup is valid, just wait a couple of minutes when they start the madness and then try and get in on that move. But yeah, the short squeeze is something that doesn't happen every day. Yeah, hopefully that's something you can take forward. But yeah, pretty good risk management. I'm impressed there. What indicator do you use for negative delta? I use Bookmap, cumulative volume delta, CVD. So yeah. And Paul H. So look at what Paul is doing. He's got a combine specifically to test a particular setup, and that's all he's doing. That's commendable. That's the engineer at work, right? It's like, okay, well, I've got a setup. I need to test it. I need to hone in on it. What do? I get a separate combine for it, and then I run the data out of sample, obviously. Forward testing. I love that. Also, what time do you use for COMEX Open and white time? So COMEX Open is generally New York time. That's 8:20, but very few platforms are going to allow you to start at 8:20 for any calculations. So I actually use 8:30 for all of my indicators. And it really doesn't make that much difference in the overall distribution curve, because you're not just taking in one candle. You're taking in the TPOs over the entirety of the session and then calculating those to a 70%. So those first 10 minutes, usually they don't really do all that much anyway. It's all a bit messy. But yeah, for the COMEX, 8:30 Eastern time. That's New York time, right? Adam says, if I have my own strategy and I want to start implementing bots but know nothing about this, where do I begin? You begin with learning how to code in Python, and it's not something to be taken lightly. It took me probably about, so when did I start coding? I mean, I started messing around with HTML when I was 16, which was 1996. But Python, I started learning. So again, I started already being a bit of a nerd, and I was a music producer as well, so I already worked with computers and with everything. When did I start on Python? Let me think. Probably about, I don't know, about 10 years ago maybe. And that was only because I needed to understand what the developers were looking at. Because we had a bit of a problem where me being a trader who didn't code at the time, and them not quite understanding what I'm trying to achieve. So I just thought to myself, it would be much easier if I just teach myself coding, and then that would be it. So I went to do a Python class. It was very basic, and it wasn't finance-minded either. But later on, I actually went to another course that was using Python and data for finance, which is an entirely different can of worms, because they're not just teaching you hello world print. It's like you need to know how to do data crunching. I mean, we do have AI these days, so the data crunching is actually pretty spot on when it comes to AI. But if you are looking to do serious coding of implementing a bot and passing different values through like JSON payloads and stuff, that gets a little bit tricky if you don't know what you're doing. And AI is not going to help you, because it makes a lot of mistakes unless you know exactly what to tell it to do. So for example, if I'm telling it how to create an order, I need to explicitly tell it what type to use, and I need to explicitly tell it that this is now in a library that I've created for you. So therefore, don't make shit up, but actually use the library that I've created. So please use the constructors and the methods from there. This is the imports that you will need, and then it kind of does it. But I did the grunt work. You know, I'm the one trawling through the API documentation to see how the orders should be placed. So if you don't know that, I would say it's going to be an uphill struggle. So don't expect that, oh yeah, I'm just going to vibe code it. You can't vibe code a trading bot, okay? Unless you know something about it. Because you won't, like, look, if AI gets it wrong, you actually have to be a pretty decent coder to figure out where it went wrong. And then to tell it how to actually solve it, because sometimes it can't solve it. Sometimes it's just I'm stuck in a loop, I don't know, and then you have to go, well, this is what you should be doing. So if you don't know what to tell it and what methods and functions it's supposed to look at and suggestions of how it can improve it, you're never going to get there, right? And then you're going to have other issues, like for example, if you're creating a bot, a lot of the times you have to implement this protection against rapid fire orders, which I forgot to do in one of my bots. So luckily I'm still testing it all in a combine. So it started executing the order. So it had a trigger, it had the order placement, and then it started executing the orders on every market tick. And I know this, I've done this before so many times, but it just kind of slipped my mind. And it immediately started executing until we got to 15. And then I had to kill it and go, we need to implement some rapid fire placement, because what you're doing now is executing on every market data tick. That's not what we want. We want this to execute once on a signal and then prevent rapid fire. And then it knows what to do because we already have the means to do it, if that makes sense. Okay? So yeah, whole bunch of things. And then if you think that everything looks amazing, right, and you get it to place an order, but it doesn't place the stop or target, and you're like, why? AI is not going to tell you why. You have to go into the code and see what are you doing exactly. So yeah, just start by thinking that this is maybe going to be a new side hustle, so to speak. But for the side hustle, you also need to learn, right? So you need to actually learn how to code. And coding bots, well, I mean, those are jobs that banks pay a lot of cash for, right? So those are the jobs that start you on like 250 grand to 500 grand. But for those jobs, you need to have a PhD in either in finance or statistics or maths, and also have a very, very good knowledge of either R or Python. So it's not a trivial thing. It's another one of those questions. It's like, I want to be an Olympic medalist. Where do I go? And can I do that tomorrow? The answer to that is no. Can I be a surgeon? Can I be a thoracic surgeon tomorrow? No, you'll need 13 years of training. Oh, but why not? Well, because skills, different skills, but skills nonetheless. Or can I be a concert violinist for Carnegie Hall and for, Royal Orchestra in London? Yes, but again, you're probably going to need 13 years of practice and some school and a lot of hours. Coding is no different. There are shit coders, there are really good coders, and there are medium coders. I am not a top coder by any stretch of form. I always say I know my place in the world. Can I make usable bots that are great for me? Yes. When we're creating actual things that will go to market for other people to use, I have a team for that because I suck. Like my organization for my code, only I know where things are located because I'm so messy and everything. And, it all works. And Dee is the only one who knows what she's trying to do with this. But all of the files and the tests and everything is always in one folder. And, it's all very messy. But I know what I was trying to do with it. So, yeah. Yeah, coding bots is definitely a long-term outlook. Unless you can pay somebody to do it. If you're well capitalized, you have some money. I mean, I don't know, it's probably going to take you 15, 20 grand, maybe up to 40 grand, depends on the complexity of the bots that you're trying to create. But yeah, I always say just don't be a Chad who thinks you can vibe code stuff to work on a very high level that you want to make money off and you want to, create your riches from. But you're like, but I know nothing about it. It's like, well, it's great, start learning. I'm very straightforward, very straightforward. Cactus Leo says, I thought you were doing NYSE Open instead of London Open. Next week, I'm going to be doing LME Open, London Metal Exchange Open. That is opening in about 40 minutes. But this week, the marketing team couldn't get all of the stuff together. We didn't want to confuse people by changing the show time, but then not changing the show name, not having the new assets. So we decided to leave it for another week. But fingers crossed they had another week to work on it. So we should be good to go for next Monday. Again, if that is the case, they will be sending out the time change, slot change, new name. It's going to be called Metals Markets with D. So it is going to be starting at 11. So it would have started 3 minutes from now. And yeah, hopefully we can get everything pulled together for next week. But yeah, here we are still. Anyways, guys, let's finish it up. I'm going to go do my nerdy other job. And yeah, just enjoy the rest of your day. Don't try not to overtrade. We have FOMC later today. So really, you should be kind of chilling out and being in mainly observation mode rather than active trading mode. And let's see what the FOMC rate decision does today. We will probably have pretty good opportunities tomorrow after the fact. So don't rush, don't stress, and I will see you again very soon. I'm Marcus Stalker D. This was the Euro Trade. Have a great day. Goodbye.